It's funny how life can throw you a curveball when you least expect it. My name's Rachel Bennett, and I've always considered myself an ordinary person. But when my father, Thomas Bennett, passed away unexpectedly, I was plunged into a storm I never saw coming. You see, my family had always been close. At least that's what I thought. My brother Aaron and I were raised in a small, tight-knit household. He was 5 years older, always the golden child. I was the quiet one, the bookworm, the one who stayed out of trouble. When our father died, I assumed the inheritance would be divided equally, but that's when everything started to unravel. The funeral was a blur, a sombre event, yet the tension in the air was undeniable. Aaron hadn't been around much in the past decade. He'd left the family home and moved out to California, starting a new life. No phone calls, no visits. I hadn't heard from him in years, and now here he was sitting beside me, his cold gaze never leaving my face. At the reading of the will, I sat anxiously beside the solicitor, waiting for the words that would confirm everything I had always believed. But when the will was read aloud, I froze. My father had left everything, his house, his savings, his prized collection of antique watches, to Aaron. Everything, except for a small sum for me, which didn't even cover the funeral expenses. My heart sank. "Are you sure this is right?" I asked, my voice shaky as I turned to the solicitor, who was adjusting his glasses. "Quite certain, Miss Bennett," he replied, looking down at the paper in his hands. "Your father's wishes were clear." I turned to Aaron, who for the first time since I'd seen him looked slightly uneasy. His usual smugness was gone, replaced by something unfamiliar. Guilt. Or was it fear? Either way, it didn't matter. The shock of the inheritance hit me like a wave, and I had to swallow the bitter taste of betrayal. I didn't know what to do. I felt completely powerless. The man I thought I knew had turned into a stranger. Aaron didn't even offer an explanation. He simply got up and left, leaving me in the solicitor's office, a hollow feeling settling in my chest. I promised myself that I wouldn't let this injustice slide. It was clear that Aaron had manipulated something behind the scenes, and I would find out what. No one was going to take what was rightfully mine without facing the consequences. The family I once knew had turned on me, and I would be damned if I didn't find out why. After the will reading, I spent sleepless nights tossing and turning. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of Aaron's smug face haunted me. How could he do this? We weren't close, but we weren't enemies either, or at least I didn't think we were. The more I replayed the events of the funeral, and that cold reading of the will, the more I became convinced something wasn't right. I started by going through every single letter and document my father had left behind. The house, the bank accounts, everything was in Aaron's name now. But one thing seemed off. The house was not just a house. It had always been in the family for generations, but there was something more. My father had frequently mentioned an old ledger, something about investments he made long ago. Late one evening, I found a dusty, leather-bound book hidden in the back of my father's study desk. The pages were yellowed with age, but as I flipped through them, I realized they detailed various investments. Nothing ordinary, but significant property deals and a few business ventures. One name stood out, however, Roswell Enterprises. It was listed several times, a large sum of money tied to the company. I'd never heard of it before, and I couldn't imagine why my father would invest so much into a seemingly unknown venture. The last entry in the ledger was the most recent one, a transfer of money to Roswell Enterprises just a few months before my father's death. The figure was astronomical, more than anything I had ever seen. Was this the reason Aaron had been so confident at the will reading? Had he known something I didn't? I decided to pay a visit to the company. It was a rainy morning when I made my way to the office building listed on the ledger. The receptionist eyed me warily as I asked to speak with someone from the accounting department. I had no reason to be there, but something inside told me to push forward. Then, as I was waiting for someone to come out, a man approached. His sharp suit and cold smile made me immediately suspicious. "Rachel Bennett, right?" he asked, his voice smooth, almost too smooth. I nodded slowly. "Who are you?" "I'm Spencer Hayes. I've been working with your brother, Aaron, for the past few months on a project involving Roswell Enterprises. Your father's investments were key." My stomach dropped. This was no coincidence. Aaron had been involved with this company, and my father's money, far more than I had ever imagined. "Why don't you come with me?" Spencer suggested, his tone almost too polite. "We have some documents you might find interesting." I followed him cautiously, my mind racing. Why was Aaron involved in this? What was his connection to Roswell Enterprises? And more importantly, why had he kept it from me? As Spencer led me deeper into the office, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. But I had no choice. I needed answers. Spencer led me through a maze of polished glass walls and sleek furniture, his polished shoes clicking with every step. I tried to stay calm, even though every instinct in my body screamed at me to turn and run. I followed him into a small conference room, where he handed me a thick folder, its contents sealed by a simple clasp. My fingers trembled as I opened it, the weight of the moment sinking in. Inside, I found a series of documents, investment reports, contracts, and a stack of emails exchanged between my father and someone named Gregory Roswell. But it wasn't the documents themselves that caught my attention. It was the final page of the folder. It was a handwritten letter, and as I read it, I felt my heart race. The letter was dated just weeks before my father's death. It was addressed to me, but there was no signature. "Rachel, if you are reading this, I am already gone. Aaron has taken everything. The money I sent to Roswell Enterprises was never an investment. It was a bribe. Gregory Roswell is not a legitimate businessman, but rather a front for a dangerous group. Your brother has been working with him, and I fear for his safety. The deal I made with Roswell was supposed to protect him, but now I fear it's too late. I have hidden the truth from you for your own good, but you must find the evidence and stop Aaron before it's too late. I am sorry for the burden. Please do not trust anyone connected to Roswell, especially Aaron. The last thing I need is for you to be pulled into this too." I felt the world tilt beneath me. My father had known about Aaron's involvement in something dangerous. And now Aaron had inherited everything. The money, the property, the house, everything was tied to this man, Gregory Roswell. I had no idea what kind of trouble Aaron had gotten into, but it was clear that my brother was no longer the person I thought he was. "I don't think you understand. Rachel," Spencer said, his voice now colder than before, "what you're getting into is bigger than just a family dispute. If you want to know what's really going on, you need to back off." I looked up at him, holding my ground. "I don't care what you say, Spencer. My father trusted me. I'm not backing off. Tell me where I can find Gregory Roswell." He smirked, as if he found my defiance amusing. "You think you can just waltz in and confront Roswell? That's not how this works." But as he spoke, I felt the pieces fall into place. I wasn't just fighting for an inheritance anymore. I was fighting for my brother's life and possibly my own. If Gregory Roswell was as dangerous as my father's letter implied, then Aaron was caught up in something far worse than a simple power struggle. "I don't need your help," I said, standing up. "But I will find Roswell. And when I do, I'll make sure Aaron understands exactly what he's done." Spencer didn't stop me as I left the room, but his eyes followed me, calculating. As I stepped out of the building, the rain had turned into a downpour. The world outside was as bleak as the thoughts in my head. I had learned enough to know that my father's death was no accident, and that Aaron had made a deal with the wrong people. But what was his role in all of this? Was he just a pawn, or was he as deep in the conspiracy as Roswell? I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. Every time I turned a corner, I felt eyes on me, watching, waiting. It was the same unease I'd felt when I entered the Roswell Enterprises building, but now it was everywhere. I didn't know who it was, but I was sure someone had been tailing me ever since I left the office. It was a feeling I couldn't ignore, and I knew I had to act fast. I decided to track down a former employee of Roswell Enterprises, someone who might know the truth behind my father's involvement with Gregory Roswell. A woman named Erica had worked there until she'd suddenly disappeared from the company 3 months ago. From what I could gather, she had been one of the few people who might know about the shady dealings behind the scenes. If anyone could give me the answers I was looking for, it was her. I managed to find Erica's apartment in a quiet part of the city. It wasn't a glamorous building, but it looked like the kind of place someone trying to escape would hide. When I knocked, a woman with dishevelled hair opened the door. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. "I'm Rachel Bennett," I said, my voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline. "I need to talk to you about Gregory Roswell and Roswell Enterprises. My father was involved with them. I need answers." At first, Erica seemed hesitant, her eyes darting nervously around the hallway. "I don't want any part of that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't know what you're getting into. They'll come after you if you dig too deep." "I don't care," I said firmly, stepping forward. "I'm already in. Please, I need to know what you know about Aaron Bennett and his connection to Roswell." Erica sighed, stepping back and letting me inside. "I shouldn't even be talking to you, but if you really want to know, then listen carefully. Aaron has been in this for years. He knew exactly what he was doing. Roswell wasn't just a business partner. It was a front for something much darker. They were laundering money, covering up illegal transactions, and all the while your father was trying to pull out of it. But Aaron—" She paused, her eyes filled with fear. Aaron was too deep to turn back. I felt a chill creep up my spine. "What do you mean? What was his role?" "He was the one who set everything in motion," Erica said, her voice trembling. "He's the one who suggested your father should invest in Roswell. He knew that your father was looking to leave, but Aaron didn't want that. He wanted more. He made deals with people who were untouchable, and now he's the one in charge. But don't you see? This isn't just about money. This is about power." I tried to digest her words. "You're saying Aaron manipulated my father into this?" Erica nodded. "It wasn't just manipulation. He promised your father that it would be a safe investment, that it would keep the family secure. But all it did was put you at risk. You and your father were pawns in a much bigger game. The only reason Aaron is walking away with everything is because he's the one with the leverage now." "But there's something worse." "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart racing. "There's a file," Erica whispered. "A file that links Aaron to something far worse than money laundering. It's not just a financial scheme. It's criminal." Before I could ask her to elaborate, a sharp knock at the door interrupted us. My heart skipped a beat as I heard a familiar voice on the other side. "Erica, we know you're in there. Open the door." I froze. My worst fear had come true. Someone had been following me, and now they were at Erica's door. The knock at the door sounded louder, more forceful this time. My heart raced, every instinct screaming at me to run. But there was nowhere to go. I could hear the footsteps outside, the ominous shuffle of someone waiting, and then a voice, a deep, gruff tone that I recognized all too well. "Erica, you know the drill. Open the door or we'll come in," the man said. I stood frozen, my breath shallow. Who were they? Were they part of Roswell Enterprises? Or worse, were they working for Aaron? I looked at Erica, but she was already backing away, her hands trembling. Her eyes flicked to me with a look of panic. "They can't find you here," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You need to leave now." Before I could protest, the door handle turned. I grabbed Erica's arm, pulling her away from the door, but it was too late. The door swung open with a creak, and 2 men stepped inside, their faces cold and unreadable. They were tall, well-dressed, but there was no mistaking the menace in their eyes. "Looking for something, Miss Bennet?" the first man asked, his lips curling into a sneer. He didn't wait for me to respond before stepping further into the room, blocking the exit. I tried to keep my composure. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Funny," the second man said, his voice low and guttural. "We've been watching you for a while now." "We know you've been poking around." A chill ran through me. They had been following me, both Erica and me. I had no idea how long they'd been tailing me, but it was clear they weren't here for small talk. "I'm not afraid of you," I said, trying to stand tall despite the fear coursing through me. The first man laughed, a harsh, cruel sound. "You should be, Miss Bennet. People like you don't understand what's at stake here. Aaron has made his choice and now you're making yours. It's a mistake." He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "You've seen the ledger, haven't you? The investments your father made? All those deals? They weren't meant for you. You've been digging where you shouldn't." I didn't know what to say. Every piece of evidence I'd uncovered so far was pointing to a dangerous web of lies and manipulation. But now it was clear that I was being watched by people much bigger than I had imagined. I had no idea how far this conspiracy reached, but I wasn't about to back down now. "I won't stop," I said, my voice firm. "Whatever it is Aaron's gotten into, I'm going to make him face it." The second man's lip curled into a snarl. "You don't understand. You've made this personal. That's a mistake you'll regret." Before I could respond, Erica grabbed my arm. "You need to go, Rachel, now." I didn't need any more convincing. I turned and ran, shoving past the men. They didn't move to stop me, but I knew they were right behind me, tracking my every move. I could hear their footsteps pounding as I rushed down the hallway and out into the rain-soaked streets. I didn't stop running until I reached the subway. I ducked into the crowd, hoping to lose them in the sea of commuters. My heart was still pounding in my chest, the sound deafening in my ears. But as the train pulled into the station and I climbed aboard, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was now in deeper than I'd ever been. I had two choices: give up and let Aaron and his people destroy everything, or keep pushing forward. And there was no way I was going to let them win. I spent the next few hours pacing around my apartment, trying to catch my breath and sort through the mess in my head. The encounter with those men had shaken me more than I wanted to admit, but it also steeled my resolve. If Aaron and his associates thought they could intimidate me into backing off, they were wrong. But I needed more. I needed the truth. Proof. Something concrete I could use to expose what was really going on. That's when my phone buzzed. It was an encrypted message from an unknown number. The message was short, but its meaning was clear. "Meet at the old pier on Bay Street. Midnight. Don't bring anyone. I have what you're looking for." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. It was a risk, but it was the kind of risk I had to take. If there was someone who had information, someone who could help me, I couldn't afford to miss this opportunity. I quickly put on a jacket and headed out into the night, trying to ignore the unease gnawing at me. The walk to the pier was long, the streets empty and damp from the earlier rain. My footsteps echoed off the wet pavement, each one seeming to echo louder in the silence around me. By the time I reached the pier, the city felt like it was miles away. The cold air hit me hard, and I pulled my jacket tighter around my body. The streetlights barely illuminated the wooden planks of the dock, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist in the darkness. I didn't see anyone when I first arrived, but then I noticed a figure standing near the end of the dock, silhouetted by the faint glow of a nearby street lamp. I hesitated for a moment, but then I walked toward them, my every instinct on high alert. As I got closer, the figure turned to face me and I froze. It was John Miller, an old friend of my father's. I hadn't seen him in years. He had been close to my father, involved in some of his business dealings, but he had vanished from our lives after the death of my mother. His sudden appearance now felt like more than a coincidence. "Rachel," John said, his voice hoarse. "I didn't think you'd actually show up." "John," I said, my voice tight. "What's going on? What do you know about my father and Roswell Enterprises?" John looked around nervously, his eyes darting between me and the dark shadows of the pier. "You don't want to be here, Rachel. It's too dangerous." "There's more going on than you realise." "Roswell, Gregory Roswell, he's not just some businessman. He's connected to some very dangerous people, people who won't hesitate to do whatever it takes to keep their secrets." "What do you know about Aaron?" I asked, my voice rising. "Why is he involved in all of this? My father was trying to pull out of this deal, and now he's dead. And my brother, he's the one who's walked away with everything. Was he working for them all along?" John took a deep breath, his face darkening. "Aaron didn't just get involved in Roswell Enterprises. He made deals with people far worse than you can imagine. He thought he could control them, but now he's in too deep. And if you're not careful, you're going to be dragged in as well." "Tell me what happened to my father," I said, my voice shaking with the weight of the question. John stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Your father wasn't just trying to protect you from Aaron, Rachel. He was trying to protect you from the whole damn system. But it's too late now. Your brother's already made his choices, and they're going to come for you next. There's a file, a real file that can prove everything, but you're running out of time." I felt the blood drain from my face. "A file? What file? And why hadn't my father ever mentioned it?" Before I could press him for more details, I heard footsteps behind me. A familiar voice, full of authority, called out, "You shouldn't have come here." "Rachel." I turned to see Aaron standing a few feet away. His face a mixture of anger and something I couldn't quite place. Was it fear? "I warned you," Aaron continued, his voice low. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." "None of this is your fight." I took a step forward, my fists clenched. "You've already dragged me into it, Aaron. You've taken everything. But I'm not going to let you walk away with it all. Not when I know what you've done." Aaron's eyes flickered to John and then back to me. There was something almost sad in his gaze, but it was quickly replaced by a hardened resolve. "You have no idea what you're up against," he said, before turning and walking away, disappearing into the shadows of the night. John grabbed my arm as I turned to follow. "Don't, Rachel. This is bigger than both of you. You need to walk away," but I couldn't walk away. I was already too far in, and now I had a file, something that could finally reveal the truth. I knew that breaking into Aaron's office was a dangerous move, but now it was my only chance. I had the file, the one John had hinted at, the one that could expose Aaron and Gregory Roswell for what they truly were. But it wasn't enough to have the file. I needed to make sure it was safe, make sure no one could destroy it before I could reveal everything. It was just past midnight when I arrived at the office building where Aaron worked. The city around me was silent, the streets slick with rain. The cold wind bit at my skin as I approached the back entrance, where I knew the security cameras wouldn't be able to catch me. I'd done my homework. Aaron's office had a set of keys that only he and a few select people had access to. But I wasn't about to let that stop me. I had a key of my own, a copy I'd made after finding one in my father's desk. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. I slid it into the lock, the door clicking open with a soft, almost imperceptible sound. I crept inside, moving quickly through the darkened hallway. The office was empty, as I had hoped. I made my way to the back, where Aaron kept his private files and personal documents. My hands were shaking as I rifled through his desk drawers. My mind focused entirely on one thing, the file that would end this nightmare. But just as I was about to pull open the last drawer, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing through the hallway. My heart leapt into my throat. I wasn't alone. I quickly shoved the drawer closed and ducked behind the office partition, my breath catching in my chest. I knew I had only moments before Aaron or someone else would find me. Then, The door to the office creaked open. I held my breath, praying that whoever it was wouldn't notice the slight movement of the partition, the only thing standing between me and discovery. I could hear Aaron's voice. "You don't have to be here, Spencer," Aaron said, his tone flat, almost tired. "I told you I'm dealing with it. It's over. I've got this under control." "I don't think you do," a deep voice replied. It was Spencer, the same man I'd met at Roswell Enterprises. "You've already made a mess of things, Aaron, and if Rachel Bennett gets that file, we're both finished." I clenched my fists. Spencer. I should have known he was involved. I peered cautiously around the corner. Spencer stood by the door, his back to me. Aaron was sitting at his desk, his face unreadable. For a moment there was silence. Then Aaron spoke again. "You're right. But it doesn't matter anymore. If Rachel gets that file, then she's already too far gone. She's not going to back down." I felt a surge of anger. So that's what this was all about. Aaron had known all along that I wouldn't stop. He'd been playing the game, trying to manipulate everything from the start. I couldn't wait any longer. I moved swiftly, darting from my hiding place and making my way to the drawer where I'd seen the file. "Rachel!" Aaron shouted as he turned in his chair. But it was too late. I had the file in my hands before he could even react. I didn't hesitate. I rushed to the door, but before I could make my escape, Spencer's voice cut through the air. "You think you're going to walk out of here with that?" he sneered. "You're not as clever as you think, Rachel." I spun around, the file clutched tightly in my hands. "I don't care what you think, Spencer. This is over, all of it. You're going to be exposed." Spencer stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. But before he could say another word, the sound of sirens filled the air. "You're too late," I said, a small smile playing on my lips. "The police are already on their way." "It's over." Aaron and Spencer exchanged a quick glance, but they knew it was too late. The truth was coming to light. There was nowhere left to hide. "Enjoy your last moments of freedom," I said, my voice steady. "You won't be able to run anymore." And with that I turned and walked out of the office, the weight of the file heavy in my hands. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like I had finally won. The courtroom was packed. Every seat was taken, and there was an electric tension in the air. It had been weeks since I'd exposed Aaron and Gregory Roswell's dealings, and the day of reckoning had finally come. The police had done their work. They'd uncovered the full extent of the money laundering, the illegal transactions, and Aaron's involvement with Roswell Enterprises. But today everything would be laid bare. I sat in the front row, my heart pounding in my chest. I had the file with me, the same file that had changed everything. It had been passed from hand to hand, its contents scrutinized by the authorities, but it wasn't just the information in that file that mattered now. It was the fact that Aaron's lies and manipulation were finally coming to light. He couldn't hide from the truth anymore. Aaron sat across from me, his expression tight, his lawyer beside him. I could see the tension in his jaw, the way he clenched his fists beneath the table. He had always been the golden child, the one who thought he could control everything. But now, in front of a judge in a courtroom full of people, I could see the cracks in his carefully constructed facade. The judge called the proceedings to order, and the first witness was called to the stand. It was Erica, the former employee of Roswell Enterprises. She was nervous, her hands shaking as she spoke, but her testimony was damning. She described the illegal transactions she had witnessed, how she had seen Aaron's name on several documents tied to Roswell's shady dealings. She spoke about how Aaron had lied to my father, convincing him to invest in something dangerous, all the while knowing that the risks far outweighed the rewards. With every word, I felt the weight of what had been stolen from me. My father had been manipulated, and I had been left to clean up the mess. But now, as the truth came out, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. This was what I had been fighting for all along. Next, the file was presented in court. The same file that I had taken from Aaron's office, the one that contained the evidence of his involvement in Roswell Enterprises' illegal operations. My lawyer stood beside me as we laid out the contents for the judge and the jury. It was clear that Aaron had been a central figure in the entire scheme, pulling the strings from behind the scenes, using my father's trust to line his own pockets. The silence in the room was deafening as the file was passed around. Aaron's face paled as the documents were read aloud, the weight of the evidence sinking in. His lawyer tried to object, but it was too late. The truth had already been exposed. "Aaron Bennett," the judge said, his voice calm but firm, "you have been found guilty of conspiracy, fraud, and money laundering. You used your father's legacy to further your own selfish interests, and for that you will face the consequences." It was done. Aaron's world came crashing down around him. The family fortune, the house, the money, it was all part of a twisted web he had woven. But now it was over. As the courtroom cleared out, I sat in the front row, my hands still gripping the armrests. I had done it. The justice I had fought for had finally been served. Aaron's manipulation had cost him everything, and I had been the one to expose it. The day my father died, I had no idea what would unfold. I had no idea how deep the betrayal ran, or how far Aaron would go to cover his tracks. But in the end, the truth had won. My father's legacy was restored, and I had reclaimed what was rightfully mine. I left the courthouse that day feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. The weight of the past had finally been lifted. I had fought for justice, and I had won. The battle was over, but I knew that I would carry the lessons with me for the rest of my life. Family, trust, and the truth, those were the things that mattered in the end. Author's note: the story of Rachel Bennett is one of betrayal, resilience, and justice. It's a reminder that even when the odds are stacked against us, the truth has a way of coming to light. This tale explores the power of persistence and the strength to confront wrongdoers head-on. In the end, Rachel's victory is not only about reclaiming her inheritance, but about standing up for what's right, no matter the cost.